Good Friday morning. Thanks for joining us on Kare 11 News Now. I'm Megan McPherson. When you head out the door today, grab a raincoat or umbrella because as you can see, we've got showers basically all day today. There's not a great chance of severe weather, but some places could see up to 6 inches of rain. Lord knows we need it. We'll check in with the weather team for a full look at the forecast in just a bit. They've got more on the flooding concerns. And by midnight tonight, domestic violence victims will have stronger protections against their attackers in Minnesota. It's part of a new slate of laws going into effect tomorrow. Audrey Russo is at the Capitol to break down these new changes.
Yeah, there really is a lot to break down with this situation. Now, under the new law, there's a new, basically stricter way, more clearly defined process for surrendering firearms. Now, right now, it's a little bit murky whose responsibility it is, whether it's on the offender to surrender his firearms or on the police to follow up to make sure that that process is actually taking place. So now, tomorrow, when this new law goes into effect, there's going to be a mechanism for following up to make sure that guns are removed from a domestic violence situation. Now, there's also a new law pertaining to warrantless arrest windows. It basically extends the amount of time that police have in a misdemeanor domestic violence case. Under current law, police had just 72 hours to arrest a suspected offender, which basically led to suspects just leaving the house for a couple of days. Starting tomorrow, police will have 14 days to make that arrest before a warrant is required. Now, these laws come nearly 1 year after the killing of Mariah Samuels, a Minneapolis woman who was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. Her family continues to play a big role in advocating for more victim protections.
To think that all these things weren't in place before kind of gives you a feel of how much they care about people who are suffering from this.
Now, this new law also earmarks $12 million for victim services and organizations dedicated to preventing domestic violence. Back to you.
Two laws going into effect tomorrow are a direct result of the lawmaker attacks last June that killed State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband and injured Senator John Hoffman and his wife. The first, increasing penalties for impersonating law enforcement. Vance Belter, the man convicted in the attacks, outfitted his vehicle to look like a police car and dressed like an officer to get the lawmakers to open their doors. Offenders can face 2 to 5 years or more, depending on if they have a firearm or have done it before. The second requires police to disclose when chemical irritants are used in a building. The Hortman's son, Colin, testified at the Capitol about the difficult and expensive process he and his sister went through to clean their parents' home after the shooting. This included use of smoke screens, pepper spray, tear gas, and flashbangs. Today, one of the top suspects in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme will be back in court. Abdi Kerm Idle faced a federal judge for the first time just 2 weeks ago after years on the run. He was arrested last month in Somalia and is facing 31 federal charges for his alleged role as a recruiter in the scheme. His charges include wire fraud, federal programs, bribery, and money laundering. This morning, a St. Paul City Council member is calling for more transparency in the sexual harassment investigation into Mayor Kali Her. Molly Coleman saying in part, quote, "The lack of transparency related to this matter is unacceptable. The city council learned about these allegations in the hiring of the external investigators from the media," end quote. She goes on to say the mayor's administration should have informed council as soon as the accusations were made. Meanwhile, in an email to staff obtained by Kare 11, St. Paul Police Chief Axel Henry reminded his officers not to let the news be a distraction, calling on them to continue being, quote, "the passionate leaders our community members know you to be." And tonight we'll hear from 2 of the Republican candidates running for governor as we get closer to Minnesota's primary election. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell, endorsed by President Trump, will go head-to-head with Kendall Qualls, who earned the GOP endorsement. They'll debate on key issues facing Minnesota and the nation. It will be held by Twin Cities PBS Almanac starting at 7. Right now, President Trump is in a battle with 2 Republican senators who are digging in and holding up the nomination vote for his pick to be the next attorney general. And he's not happy, threatening to pull Todd Blanche's nomination until the lawmakers leave office. But the president also facing headwinds overseas as this war with Iran threatens to expand. NBC's Chris Pallone has details from Washington.
No confirmation vote yet on President Trump's pick to lead the Department of Justice. Republicans say acting AG Todd Blanche doesn't have the votes to be confirmed for now. President Trump's pick for Attorney General Todd Blanche in limbo. 2 Republican senators holding out for guarantees in writing from the Justice Department. Now the president threatening to bypass holdout Senators John Cornyn and Tom Tillis altogether by running out the clock. I have no objection to temporarily withdrawing Todd's name if they do not do the right thing, the president posted on social media, saying he'll wait until the new Congress convenes in January, putting him back after Cornyn and Tillis are out of office. But that's assuming Republicans retain control of the Senate.
Hey, 158 days, they can try it again, roll the dice on what the Senate confirmation process looks like next year.
The senators want changes to a settlement agreement between President Trump and the IRS and a written pledge that a Department of Justice anti-weaponization fund will not be established. Critics fear that fund could use taxpayer money to pay off the president's allies who claim they've been unfairly prosecuted.
The fact that they're balking at putting that in writing tells me that they were hoping to get by with this settlement agreement and his testimony and then revitalize those provisions at a later date.
The domestic roadblock for the president coming as the war against Iran takes a new turn. A senior law enforcement official telling NBC News that a cyber attack on more than 30 municipal water systems across Minnesota this week points to Iranian-backed hackers, though the official cautions the forensic analysis is still in its early stages.
We've never had a similar incident, so this is the first.
The administration advising water systems across the country to take steps now to fend off similar cyber attacks. And today, signs of progress in the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. President Trump announcing a deal has been reached for Hamas to disarm and Israel to withdraw its forces from Gaza. It comes 9 months after the two sides signed a ceasefire agreement, but no timetable for implementation has been announced. In Washington, Chris Pallone, NBC News.
This morning, the New York Times is reporting Iran could be behind the attacks on 36 Minnesota water systems earlier this week, including cities like Plymouth and South St. Paul. Prior to the attacks, the FBI, EPA, and other agencies issued a joint cybersecurity advisory warning Iranian-affiliated groups could hit water systems through programmable controllers connected to the internet. Well, now the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency issued a new nationwide alert to these types of attacks after seeing them happen in cities across the country. 5 days after a deadly mass shooting at a Seattle food festival, we've learned the city's top officer is out. The mayor confirming Police Chief Sean Barnes' resignation. The mayor says a number of factors went into the decision, but she says she is reviewing the response to Sunday's shooting. There's been a lot of questions regarding miscommunications, including the lack of alerts when one of the suspects was still on the run. We're expecting to learn more information during a press conference later today. Tomorrow is your first chance to see the Minnesota Vikings on the field for training camp practice. And the big story is still the quarterback race. Julia Daniels is at TCO Stadium with where things stand.
Good morning, everyone. Day 2 of Vikings training camp is officially in the books, and we are already honing in on this quarterback competition between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. So that means we're watching everything from these guys. But since we're only through day 2 of practice, let's be honest, there's not much to really read into. Both guys are splitting reps with the ones. Kyler trying to pick up the offense, J.J. trying to correct how he can run an offense. We did hear from offensive coordinator Wes Phillips yesterday afternoon ahead of practice. He said this about the QBs, but Kyler in particular.
Those guys are professionals. They're all about it, and the good thing about Kyler just being a veteran is that he's got a lot of banked experience under his belt. So a lot of the things that maybe a rookie would be struggling with, hey, I'm not getting enough reps, he's seen just about everything and knows how to play football.
Now, they aren't giving us too much information into exactly what they're doing to evaluate these guys, but they did say one thing that they're looking out for is not just how a quarterback takes direction, but how they're picking up the direction that's directed at other quarterbacks and correcting it for themselves. But it's only day 2. We've got a long road ahead of us before we find out who the official starter is at quarterback. In Eagan, Julia Daniels, Kare 11 Sports.
It is the end of a sweet era. The iconic Pearson's Candy Company factory in St. Paul is shutting its doors on September 28th. According to a WARN notice, 80 people will lose their jobs, citing lack of financial sustainability. Pearson's Candy Company makes items like the salted nut roll and nut goodies. It started in Minneapolis in 1909 and has been operating on West 7th Street in St. Paul since 1959. Pearson's is currently owned by Promise Confections out of Pittsburgh. In a statement, Promise Confections saying in part, we're looking to move certain key brands of Pearson's to a strategic partner and will continue to explore all options in order to make these legacy products. Stay Stick with us. More news and weather is coming up after the break.